But now let's shift gears to George Tillis, senior markets correspondent, who's here to discuss UnitedHealth, which having a rare day of movement. Not to say the stock hasn't moved because it's seen some pretty substantial volatility, but at least finally talking about a move to the upside in UNH.
Yeah, Jay, I mean, it's actually been sort of a remarkable story for UnitedHealthcare, which is down still, even if after today's move around 44 or so percent, give or take, from the highs on a year-to-date basis, which were over $600. And I think the story is really kind of twofold for this name. First off, if you consider that in 2025, there was essentially a pretty large premium mispricing the company basically declared. And two, there was also some political and, of course, regulatory scrutiny against the company based on some potential, practices associated with reimbursement rates for Medicare and Medicaid. Those two were pretty large negative catalysts for the name, and the stock essentially traded all the way down to, I believe, around the $240 area. And now it's essentially a company that used to be around $600 billion, more than half off. Right now, we're up $300 billion, even after today's move to the upside, which is still nice. But I think what's happening here is we are starting to see effectively a couple of quarters of declines potentially reversed, and the conditions are that the company reaffirm their guidance for the full fiscal year, which right now, based on consensus estimates, is around $16.25. And essentially that reaffirms institutional investors' view of the company, as well as the kind of clear go-ahead for them to continue to add shares based on some valuation discounts that the stock traded at as it fell considerably over those past two quarters.
George, Warren Buffett obviously added this to the portfolio very publicly. I mean, probably the most, I don't think it's an argument, actually. Let's call him the most famous value investor of all time. But there's key words there, investor, and he's a long-term kind of visionary with this. A lot of times I think retail steps in, they see these big moves, they look for these quick bounce backs. This one might take a little bit, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's trading quite considerably off the lows, which are, if you go back to, I believe, mid-July, just looking at it, right around the 234. So you essentially got a $100 move in the shares already. That's pretty significant off those lows. Now it really comes down to, an investment vehicle. I mean, obviously there's a trading element to it after the decline. Now it comes down to manifestation of earnings. And that's where you start to see the slow and steady resumption of trends back to the upside. I'm not saying that's the case here for UnitedHealthcare, but it is making a meaningful progression higher. I mean, if you look at it on a daily chart standpoint, from a technical standpoint, it does look like, based on the $345 area, that's breaking back above an inverse head and shoulder pattern. So for what it's worth, that is certainly a bullish technical pattern, which then may end up causing the stock to continue higher based on sort of this burst of momentum that it has up to the May levels of $373. So you have to be mindful that they're going to be reporting earnings soon. And so just because they reaffirmed guidance into earnings, it may end up being a situation where they have to give us some additional earnings guidance higher post-earnings to see this thing continue higher. But again, because it faced some PR challenges over the last year, a lot of times these can present great opportunities for patient investors, hence maybe Warren Buffett, why they invested in this company, because there's value to be had here. It just comes down to reaffirming what point at a pivot level earnings declines are going to stop and then earnings progression is going to increase. And that seems to be the case going forward right now based on the reaffirmation of guidance, which is higher.
Okay, and so, George, I know a lot of the enthusiasm today is now tied to, a huge part of its Medicare Advantage plans, and some of the overall, ratings and how it was better than feared, sure. But then, is this just a company that is always going to be this hugely exposed, frankly, to government spending and, influx we see from the U.S. government, which is, I think, more of the headline story than perhaps a obviously improvement from their guidance?
Yeah, look, there's always going to be problems, concerns you have to be aware of with this company. Once the Department of Justice inquiry begins, they do their due diligence. That could take some time. What I am suggesting here is that when the company reaffirms guidance, at the very least, to me, it suggests that the company feels confident in their ability to get through that DOJ investigation. I'm not saying that's going to be the case because there could be some additional bad news that the company has, and you can see 10%, 15% just decline immediately based on some bad news. So that's still a risk you have to consider. Now it comes down to the earnings multiple expanding based on earnings guidance, which again should go higher over time because price is moving quite considerably off those lows, just going back to the mid-July level. So it's a slow progression here. But nonetheless, it's a positive progression for those who have been patiently waiting for this stock to reverse.
Yeah, and hey, 9 and some change percent move to the upside today is definitely a signal of hopefully this revival. So price, I think, today speaks to everything that you just mentioned. So we appreciate that, George. Really great breakdown on UnitedHealth. It's finally a positive catalyst to discuss today.